Hi, I'm Leander Caney from cultofmac.com, and in this video I'm going to be reviewing the iPhone XR, Apple's latest iPhone and the least expensive phone in its current lineup. The interesting thing is, this iPhone is basically a $1,200 iPhone in a $750 package. The iPhone XR is typical Apple. It's an entry-level phone with a bunch of premium features. Johnny Ive and Tim Cook just can't cut corners. The XR is anything but entry-level technology. It has many of the premium features of its more expensive brethren, and all of the core technology that people really care about. A big beautiful screen, great cameras, great battery life and Face ID, which completely changes the relationship to security and passwords. And it's still priced at $750, which is anything but an entry-level price, but it's $350 less than the comparable XS Max. It comes in 6 colors: black, white, blue, yellow, coral, and red for product red. The design is primo too, of course. It has a big, beautiful edge-to-edge display. Both the front and the back are made of glass. The curved edges are seamlessly joined to a metal frame made from 7000 series aerospace-grade aluminum. I like the feel of the aluminum. It's a bit warmer and softer than the stainless steel used in the more expensive 10 and XS handsets. The buttons are precision machined with barely perceptible gaps. They're solidly clicky and satisfying. The XR is a little thicker and heavier than the XS, measuring in at 8.3mm and weighing 194 grams. That's versus 7.7mm and 177 grams. But the differences are barely noticeable. It's comfortable to hold for long periods and you'll have no trouble at all putting it into and out of your pocket. There's good reason for all the added weight and thickness too. The iPhone XR carries a larger display and a much bigger battery. You might notice that the XR has bigger bezels around its edges. This is because the display is LCD rather than OLED used in the 10 and the XS, and the bezels accommodate the backlight. So like a lot of things with the XR, the bezels are really only noticeable if you hold it next to a phone like the 10 or the XS. In everyday life, you just won't notice it. There's a lightning port, but you better sit down for this, there's no headphone jack. The XR is rated IP67 for dust and water resistance. It'll withstand splashes and dunking in water up to 1 meter for 30 minutes. It'll be safe poolside, but you can't really go scuba diving with it. Apple calls the display Liquid Retina, and it says it's the best LCD display on any phone on the market. The XR display looks a lot like the display in the iPhone XS or the XS Max, but there are a couple of big differences. It's a bit larger than the XS and a bit smaller than the XS Max. It also uses more traditional LCD technology rather than an OLED panel. Apple calls it a Liquid Retina display and claims it's the best LCD in the smartphone industry. It's certainly impressive with True Tone technology which adjusts the screen to different light conditions, an excellent backlight and support for the P3 wide color gamut. If you've been using an 8 or an 8 Plus, you can expect it to be just as good, but it's not perfect. We've been spoiled by OLED screens, and anyone who's used a 10 or a XS will notice the XR's display is not quite as good. There's no support for high dynamic range. It has a lower resolution and a lower contrast ratio. You might miss 3D touch too, but that's not a big disappointment for many people. So side by side with something like the 10 or the XS Max, the XR doesn't look as sharp or as vibrant. The colors are a little muted, the black's not quite as black. But you shouldn't be too disappointed with it. You'll only see it if you make a direct comparison, and if you're upgrading from an older phone, you'll be delighted anyway. Other smartphone manufacturers would have done this. It's yet another example of Apple's exemplary attention to detail. And it proves that while the XR might be the most affordable handset this year, it wasn't an afterthought like the iPhone 5C. Some things might have been left out to keep costs low, but no corners have been cut. That's true when it comes to many of the XR's internal components too. Apple didn't just throw older components into a new shell. You get the same A12 Bionic chip here as you do in the XS. The XR is blazing fast, no matter what you do with it. Multitasking, gaming, and even augmented reality are just as smooth on the XR as they are on the XS. No Android phone comes close to matching the performance of the XR, which performs just as well as the XS in benchmark tests. The XR can't keep up with the XS in network performance, however. Its more expensive siblings now support ultra-speedy gigabit LTE, whereas the XR uses the same LTE advanced technology we've gotten from previous Apple devices. This shouldn't be too much of an issue for most folks, but it's worth noting. The XR does offer dual SIM technology like the XS, but it's not available in the US yet. It'll come later with a software update. The XR doesn't have a second telephoto lens, which means no optical zoom, but it does have the same 12 megapixel camera as a XS and smart HDR technology. That means photos and videos you shoot with this are just as good. The XR offers portrait mode with advanced bokeh and depth control too, despite just one lens. The same megapixel front-facing camera from the XS is also packed into the XR. It boasts Smart HDR, portrait mode and portrait lighting with 5 effects. You can also use it to shoot 1080p video at up to 60 frames per second, and yes, an emoji is also supported. The same front-facing camera also means you get Face ID in the XR, and it works wonderfully. It's more secure than the Touch ID and a lot easier to use, and we found it to be much more reliable. It is ever so slightly slower than fingerprint scanning, but you probably wouldn't notice. If there's one thing the XR does better than any other iPhone, and in fact any other smartphone, it's battery life. The XR lasts up to 1.5 hours longer than the iPhone 8 Plus in between charges, and it lives up to that promise. You should have no trouble getting through a full day with juice to spare, even if you play games, watch videos or stream music. The XR has the same improved wireless charging technology as the XS, which means it's faster and it's compatible with the key charging accessories you may have already purchased if you're upgrading from the iPhone X. You'll still get power through a cable faster, however, with a 50% charge in just 30 minutes. The iPhone XR is the best smartphone Apple has ever made for under $750. It's beautifully designed with a great display and it's incredibly fast. Camera performance is excellent and the battery life is even better. It might not be the most impressive smartphone Apple sells today, but it's impossible to be disappointed with the XR. The XR is the future of the smartphone that Apple has been pushing, with just a few alterations to make it more affordable. If you can't afford a XS, get a XR instead. You'll be very happy with it.